Hey, what's going on? This is Connor Riker. I'm here to present to you my presentation on the blockchain called the Blockchain Revolution. So let's dive right into it. Let's go over the origins of Bitcoin, because to understand the blockchain, you need to know Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, we first heard about it on October 31st, 2008, when Satoshi Nakamoto posted his white paper. Now, no one knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. Every so often, you'll see an article, founder of Bitcoin found, but turns out not to be real. So, we don't know if he's ever going to come out of the shadows. Maybe he will, maybe not. But either way, blockchain and Bitcoin are here to stay. So, Bitcoin started with a lot of libertarian objectives. And those who have interest in Austrian economics and stuff like that. Free markets, a decentralized currency, free from fractional reserve banking, free from the influence of government, not subject to things like the Federal Reserve, printing money. So with fiat currencies, you run into the problem of government, having full control over it, trusting them to honor it, and the continuous printing of money sometimes, which devalues the dollar. Currency manipulation is a big reason why a lot of libertarians tend to want their money based on something hard, precious metals. But precious metals have problems with storage, transportation, stuff like that. So the new wave is Bitcoin, free and 100% reserve storage. Transportation is free and easy, which is probably the biggest thing about it. It can travel across state lines. It doesn't know what a border is, and that's something that libertarians find very, very attractive. So first, I'm going to delve very basic into how it works. Try not to get too confusing. It aims to eliminate third parties for transactions. So normally, if you buy a good online, let's say from eBay, you have to interact with PayPal, who makes sure you give them the money, the other person sends the product out, and then it distributes the money. Now the problem with things like PayPal, of course, is that they charge high fees, and to get around this, we want to use Bitcoin. Now the problem with something like Bitcoin would normally be the double spending problem. That's why you have a third-party intermediary, to know that both parties have the money or goods. Now, to solve the double spending problem is why we use the block. So what the blockchain is, in its simplest terms, is just a virtual ledger. It shows all the transactions from the beginning of the first transaction of Bitcoin up until now. And all these transactions are grouped into blocks that are in a chain. What the blockchain does is it uses a complex SHA-256 hash algorithm for its security. And what happens is every time there is a new transaction, it gets pushed to a node, which is basically another computer in the system. So what you run into is they group these transactions into blocks. Now the problem you're going to run into is that I have a new block, you have a new block, and we're saying whose block is the right block. I have some transactions in it that you have some I don't. Who's going to be the new block? So what they do is they take all the transactions and they add a random number to it. Then what happens is that gets put into the hash algorithm. A hash algorithm is then solved by other computers. Now normally this would take years for one computer to do, but because you're using the power of the entire decentralized network, usually a new block gets created every 10 minutes. Now, one of the problems that people would think would be, okay, what's to stop someone from building a really fast computer and then just them making each new block and then them telling everybody this is the new block and engaging in fraudulent transactions? Well, actually, the protection is through the whole computing power of the network. So it is estimated for one person to be able to do that, you would need the top 500 supercomputers 256 times over. So it's basically impossible for anybody to fool the blockchain network into adding fraudulent transactions, because there's just no way you have that much computing power. This may sound a little confusing, but the main thing to take away from it is that it tries to eliminate the third parties in a completely secure way. And from that elimination of third parties in a decentralized, secure way is where we get more usage for the blockchain. So blockchains in other areas. So to go over a few, distributed cloud storage. So one good thing is now that you have this vastly powerful network of decentralized computers everywhere around the world that people can access. So people can now, use their unused computing time, their unused hard drive space, and they can sell that. So if you want to store something, you can use my unused hard drive space. If I have extra computing power, I'm not using my computer right now, and you want to use it on the downtime, say you're a business, and you're like, okay, we need to solve this problem, we need really powerful CPU or whatever to solve this, you can send that out, and you can look for other people on the network that you can say, hey, can I use some of your unused computer time? And you could pay them a small fee, and you can get. So this allows very efficient allocation of resources. That previously, if I have unused hard drive space, I have unused hard drive space. That's what it is. And now that we can use that resource to exchange these goods, it's a very useful tool. Bank security, you see J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs investing money into this. Still a drop in a bucket for them, but it's something they're looking to increase their security. Now, that would, of course, be on some type of different blockchain, like not using Bitcoin's blockchain, their own blockchain, but that doesn't have much relevance, or that the banks are going to take over the blockchain or something like that. Full transparency in government and charity. So imagine if you can see where every dollar government spends and where every dollar goes, what comes in. You would be able to do that with something like the blockchain, because as I said, it's just a decentralized ledger. So if the government is using, even if they had their own coin system, and they were shelling out money for whatever, you can just look at the full audit of the entire ledger. Charity, of course, you want transparency for charity. That would also be useful. Tracking of stocks using colored coins. So instead of using stock certificates, why don't we use specific coins for specific stocks? So instead of, relying on, let's say, a piece of paper or your stockbroker, now you have a colored coin that says you're entitled to this amount of stock and this amount of payment over time. Micro-investment insurance. Imagine using smart contracts, which I'm about to get into, to insure your house and distribute it among, 1,000 people who you each pay a certain amount of money, and then if anything happens to your house, 1,000 people get spread across it to pay you back using some type of smart contracts. That's how much I'm about to go into. And history. So imagine if all of human recorded history was on a blockchain. So it's uneditable. No government could come in and say, no, that's not the real history we want you to learn. And it would just be, it's having the truth. So that is another very something that could be useful in the future with blockchains. Smart contracts. This is big. So a smart contract basically is just an event statement. And the if, so let's say I'm betting you that the Broncos are going to win this weekend. I bet you $5. So if Broncos win, now what is that if dependent on? An oracle. So this is the thing that decides it. And this is where it gets interesting. So imagine if the oracle is just ESPN score center or whatever, where you can just see the score and the oracle reads that off their website and says, okay, Broncos won, here's your $5. Now, if you extrapolate that to companies using thousands of oracle for other things, and these can get pretty complicated, but they can also be very useful. And the key to smart contracts is not only the oracle, but the money is built in. So if you're using a Bitcoin in a smart contract, so instead of having to worry about an escrow service maybe going out of business and taking your money, or the other person running away with your money, the money is built into the bet. So you and someone else agrees, we're going to each bet $5, the Broncos are going to win. If the Broncos win, automatically, no sore loser, the oracle sees it, I get the $5, the money was built in, he has no control over it, that's it. And other contracts as well, wills, you can think about 1,000 different uses for things like this. Patents, so right now patents are publicly filed. I submitted to a patent office, you could see a patent right there, and it's kind of public record, so anybody can really see it even though they can't patent it. So imagine like a Chinese firm just looking at our patents or whatever and being able to replicate it, escaping U.S. patent law. Instead of, having to publicly file it, you could just put it on the blockchain, and then if anybody else tried to replicate your design, you can go see proof of invention right here. I have it right here. So this is something that could be very useful to protect IPs and not allowing other people to copy them while also getting proper patent protection. Land registry. So Honduras is currently partnering with this company called Factum, and this is a really interesting topic because one of the building blocks of capitalism, of course, is private property. And in the developing world, you run into tons of corruption and stuff like that. And even America, I heard a story where, some black southerner during the Reconstruction era was, kind of run off his land, and they changed the documents to, switch the deed without, him having any recourse. So instead of having situations like that, in Honduras or something where, Central America is very unstable, you would have a long blockchain that shows the changing of hands of the land, generations down the line for, forever. So this would be very useful for not just Honduras, but the entire developing world, ensuring the integrity of private property, who owns it, and then by letting people know that, okay, your property is protected, we have it on record, and you can come and invest with us. So this could definitely be something that, and this is something that really can help the developed world, blockchain in general, just from voting maybe, to putting voting on the blockchain as another interesting one, to, land registries, private property. So Ethereum and decentralized apps, if Bitcoin was the first step in the blockchain, this is the next evolution. So what they did was they basically put programming languages on the blockchain. You could program in C++, you could program in HTML, JavaScript, a whole bunch of stuff you can program with this API. And what it allows is decentralized apps. So pretend it's a social media site or something, or any website, any app. Now with normal apps you have one single point of attack, one single point of entry that someone can hack in and attack. Imagine if your app's kind of decentralized, spread across everywhere, and there is no single point to attack. And you don't have to put your photos on Facebook. You can own your photos. There's a lot of different uses and a lot of, we don't even know what people can do with this shit. It's really an emerging field, and Ethereum is set to release their Mist browser. I think they said sometime by the end of the year. We're coming up on it. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get it out this year, but it looks quite interesting. So you would be able to, in this browser, they have sections to manage everything from your social media to any contracts, to your savings, to your mortgage, things like that you would be able to put on the blockchain, all in one package. And the real next evolution from that would be if computers start enforcing contracts and making smart contracts, robot businesses follow and start using profits to self-upgrade. So imagine if you have a machine, it kind of looks on the marketplace for its own upgrades. It upgrades itself, uses some type of algorithm to determine, the price, the cost, etc., etc. And it starts to gradually upgrade itself from its profits. And then if it gets to an obsolescence point, then it could just scrap itself and, use its scrap money and all that to buy a new machine. It's, it's a complex thing that you can kind of extrapolate from this, but, that could be the future. We don't know. And it seems like it's plausible. So it's really exciting stuff. Investment. So let's talk about the investment in this field. Ethereum had the largest crowdfunding in history at $18.4 million, $800 million so far invested in Bitcoin and blockchain technology startups since 2012. Indicates nearly 200 venture capital firms have invested in Bitcoin companies, and that total excludes the various private deals. So you can imagine there's probably technologies and apps and stuff that they're developing that they just don't want people to know about yet, that these venture capital firms are engaging in. So a lot of money is being poured into this right now, and probably will only grow even more. So what are the threats? Fracturing, Bitcoin. There's a bunch of altcoins, Dogecoin, Litecoin. That's a threat probably to Bitcoin, but in terms of the overall blockchain technology, I don't think it's like any big deal. Government, of course, would be the biggest threat, trying to stop Bitcoin use, stop, this decentralization, and because if you allow if you take this to this logical conclusion, that means the government can't access any of your records. Everybody's operating in a private market through, the Bitcoin market or whatever, with contracts, things like that, insurance and stuff, and it really takes away a lot of government power. So it's definitely something that you're going to see a lot of resistance to at first. That the government's not going to be willing to go along. I think even New York just passed a law that said you have to something with registration with Bitcoin. But it's definitely the big danger, and let's hope the government doesn't interfere with the market too much. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this presentation.